A Florida nurse, a 15-year-old boy, and allegations of sexual abuse that have torn a family apart. We'll break down the shocking criminal complaint, the family's disturbing reaction, and the professional consequences already unfolding. Then, my conversation with a legal expert on the grim details of this case and what it says about consent, grooming, and the long road to justice. Good evening, and welcome to Sidebar. Florida officials are taking the first steps to permanently revoke the nursing license of 35-year-old Alexis Yates. This comes after her arrest on a charge of sexual battery on a person 12 to 18 years of age by a person in familial custody. In simple terms, she is accused of having a sexual relationship with her 15-year-old stepson. But this case is about so much more than the initial charge. The arrest affidavit from the Marion County Sheriff's Office paints a picture not just of an alleged crime, but of a family in crisis, with some members allegedly trying to cover it up, and a victim caught in the middle. The details are graphic, they are disturbing, and they raise difficult questions. Let's start with the foundation of this case. According to court documents, this all came to a head on the night of July 30th, 2024. An anonymous tip came into the sheriff's office, stating that a man had walked in on his wife and his son having sex. Detectives acted quickly. They brought the child victim, the 15-year-old stepson, to a child advocacy center for what's known as a forensic experiential trauma interview. This is a specific technique designed to help young victims recall traumatic events in a safe, controlled environment. And what this teenager described was a classic and chilling pattern of alleged grooming. The teen said he was visiting his father and stepmother, Alexis Yates, for summer break. On the night of the incident, after his younger half-siblings were put to bed, he and Yates played video games and watched a movie. He told investigators that Yates allowed him to use her THC vape pen. He also stated that for about a week leading up to this night, Yates had been making sexual jokes and comments in front of him. Then, around 1 a.m., he says Yates explicitly told him she was, and I quote, horny and hadn't had sex in 2 weeks. The affidavit states the teen, who was a virgin, then asked if she wanted to cuddle. Now, despite Yates allegedly responding that cuddling might be weird, the situation escalated rapidly. The teen laid on top of her on the couch, they began kissing, and it led to sexual activity. And here is a crucial, and legally significant, detail from the affidavit. The teen recalls Yates saying, and I quote, man, I wish you were 18 because you're not old enough. Despite saying that, the encounter proceeded. The affidavit goes into explicit, graphic detail about the sexual acts that followed. The forensic interviewer noted that the way the teen described these events was consistent with someone recounting an actual, lived experience, not a fabricated story. And then, the moment of discovery, the teen told investigators that suddenly, the front door began to unlock. He ran to the bathroom. His father, Yates' husband, walked in. The father allegedly saw his wife on the couch with no bra on, a blanket covering her lower body. He yelled, "What the bleep is going on?" and started throwing things. The father immediately told his son to pack his things, saying he was taking him to his grandparents' home. As he packed, the teen overheard his father yelling at Yates, calling her a child predator. But then, the story takes another dark turn. Welcome back. We're discussing the case of Florida nurse Alexis Yates, accused of sexual battery on her 15-year-old stepson. When we left off, the boy's father had just discovered the alleged encounter and was driving his son to his grandparents' house. But this is where the case becomes as much about the alleged cover-up as the crime itself. According to the teen's statement, his father told him he had ruined his life. At a gas station, the father aggressively drank a six-pack of beer during the drive. And then, the pressure began. Once at his grandparents', the teen told his cousin what happened. His grandfather then confronted him, saying, "You better not be telling them what happened," and prevented him from calling his mother. The teen also stated that his father called him and explicitly told him not to tell his mother and not to tell the police. Meanwhile, the affidavit claims that Yates was spinning her own version of events, telling family members that the teen was a master manipulator and blaming him for the entire incident. It seemed, for a time, that the family was closing ranks. But the story shifts again. A few days after his forensic interview with police, the teen had a phone call with a woman named Haley, who appears to be a family friend or relative. She told him that his father was now willing to take the truth about the incident and protect the child victim. She said his father did not want to live with Yates anymore and, crucially, that he wanted Yates to be arrested. The teen was told, "Your father did not wish to kill him anymore. This whiplash from being blamed to being supported highlights the immense psychological turmoil this entire family was, and likely still is, experiencing. To help us make sense of these complex family dynamics and the legal strategy at play, I'm now joined by victims' rights attorney, John Phillips. John, thanks for being here. Thanks for having me, Jesse. John, let's start with the family's reaction. The father walks in on this, he's furious, he blames his son, he tells him not to go to the police. From a legal standpoint, is that kind of witness intimidation a crime in itself? Absolutely, Jesse. It is. That can be prosecuted as witness tampering or intimidating a witness. In the immediate shock and horror of the moment, people live in the now. He's thinking about the stigma, the custody battles, the utter destruction of his family. But that doesn't excuse it. The law is clear. You cannot tell a victim of a crime not to report it. And the alleged grooming behavior, the THC, the sexual comments, the shared activities. How does that play into building the prosecution's case? It's textbook. It shows a pattern of breaking down boundaries. You start with something that feels like a privilege. Here, use my vape pen. Then you introduce sexualized language in a joking way to normalize it. It's a gradual process of desensitization. For the prosecution, this isn't just about one night. It's about a calculated process that led to that night. Welcome back. We're talking with attorney John Phillips about the case against Alexis Yates. John, Yates was eventually arrested in November. When they took her in, the affidavit says she didn't want to speak without a lawyer, but then made an unprovoked statement. She said she thought she was in the clear because the Department of Children and Families had closed their case. What does that tell you? It's a statement against interest. She's not denying it happened. She's saying she thought the administrative finding would protect her from criminal liability. And that's a critical misunderstanding. A DCF case and a criminal prosecution are two separate tracks. That statement is a gift to the prosecution. Now, the charges were upgraded from the initial arrest charge to a first-degree felony. What's the significance of that charge? Sexual battery by a person in familial custody. It recognizes the profound breach of trust. This isn't a stranger. This is a step-parent, a person in a position of authority and care. The law imposes a higher duty on them. The penalties reflect that. We're talking about a potential sentence of decades in prison, not just a few years. This is a life-altering charge. And simultaneously, the Florida Department of Health has already suspended her nursing license. They said she lacks the good judgment and moral character to be a nurse. Can they do that before she's even been convicted? They can, and they often do in cases like this. It's an emergency suspension. The board's mandate is to protect the public. They look at the arrest affidavit and the nature of the allegations, especially for a professional who is entrusted with caring for vulnerable people, and they determine that the risk of allowing her to continue practicing is too great. There will be a separate administrative hearing, but she's fighting on two fronts now, her freedom and her career. Finally, John, looking ahead, what is the single biggest challenge you see for the prosecution in getting a conviction? The cooperation of the victim and his father. Without them, this case becomes incredibly difficult. The prosecution can compel them to testify, but if they are hostile or reluctant on the stand, a jury might have reasonable doubt. The most powerful witness in a case like this is a credible, consistent, and supported victim. The family's journey from chaos to support, as messy as it was, will be the central narrative of this trial. John Phillips, always appreciate your insights. Thank you. Thank you, Jesse. The case against Alexis Yates is a stark reminder that the fallout from sexual abuse extends far beyond the perpetrator and the victim. It shatters families, pits relatives against each other, and creates a ripple effect of trauma and denial. For the 15-year-old at the center of this, the path to healing will be long. He not only has to process the alleged abuse but also the initial rejection from his own family. The criminal justice system will now grind forward, with depositions, pretrial motions, and the looming possibility of a trial. As for Alexis Yates, she faces the loss of her profession and the potential loss of her freedom. She has pleaded not guilty. Her next court appearance is scheduled for the end of May. We will, of course, continue to follow this story and bring you updates. That is all the time we have for tonight. For everyone here at Sidebar and Law and Crime, thank you for watching.